"Open the gates," Alpha King Rowan Blackridge said. The words struck harder than a shouted sentence ever could. Around him, the wedding hall fell silent. Hundreds of pack members stood beneath the silver banners of Blackridge, still holding glasses raised for a union that had lasted less than an hour. Alara Whitmore stared at Rowan from the center of the marble floor. The mate mark beneath her collarbone was still warm. It had appeared during the ceremony, bright and undeniable, binding her wolf to his before every alpha, beta, and elder in the Northern Alliance. Now it burned like a warning. "Rowan," she whispered. His expression did not change, but his wolf pressed violently against the bond between them. She felt it recognize her, reach for her, mourn her before she had even left. Rowan placed a folded document on the council table. A map of our eastern defenses was found in Red Hollow territory. Quiet murmurs moved through the hall. Alara looked at the broken royal seal on the paper. It carried her name. Her handwriting. Neither belonged there. "I didn't send that." Chancellor Grant Hawthorne stepped beside the throne, dressed in formal black. "The message was recovered from an enemy courier 2 hours ago. Then someone forged it." Alara turned to Rowan. "You know my scent. You know when I'm lying." That made something flash behind his eyes. Not anger. Something worse. Doubt-fighting instinct. Rowan had spent his whole life being taught that a king who trusted the wrong person could destroy every pack beneath his protection. Tonight, that lesson stood between him and his mate. "The council has confirmed the evidence," he said. "The council never asked me a single question." Her voice shook, but she kept her chin lifted. She would not beg in front of people who had already decided what an Omega's word was worth. Rowan's hand tightened against the table. For one breath, Alara thought he might cross the room. She felt his wolf pull toward her through the bond. Then Grant spoke quietly. "Your Majesty, dawn is less than 3 hours away. Red Hollow may already be moving." Duty closed over Rowan's face like a locked door. "You will leave Blackridge territory before the moon sets." A few guests looked away. Others watched with open satisfaction. The lowborn Omega bride had risen too far, and now the pack could enjoy watching her fall. Alara removed the silver wedding cloak from her shoulders and laid it at Rowan's feet. "I came here because I believed you would stand beside me when the pack turned against me." Her eyes met his. "I was wrong." Rowan's wolf surged so sharply through the bond that several candles flickered. Still, the king did not stop her. The guards opened the iron gates. Snow swept into the courtyard, sharp and white beneath the mountain moon. Alara walked out wearing only her wedding dress and thin shoes, each step carrying her farther from the throne she had never wanted and the man she had chosen anyway. Behind her, the gates began to close. Then she stumbled. One hand caught the stone wall. The other pressed against her stomach as a strange second heartbeat moved through the mate bond. Small, bright, and impossibly new. Alara looked back. Rowan had already turned away, and before the gates sealed shut, she made the first decision of her new life. He would never know. 6 years later, Alara Whitmore woke to the sound of someone tapping on her bedroom door with the patience of a woodpecker. "Mom," Callum called. "Mrs. Bell says the fox is trying to bite everybody again." Alara opened her eyes and stared at the pale morning light spilling through the curtains. Outside, snow rested on the pine branches around Alder Creek, Colorado, turning the little mountain town quiet and clean. For half a second, she could almost believe her life had always been this simple. Then the mate mark beneath her collarbone gave a dull, familiar ache. It had never disappeared. It had only faded enough for her to breathe around it. "Tell Mrs. Bell I will be downstairs in 5 minutes," she said. I told her 3. "Then you are already in trouble." Callum laughed and ran down the hall. Alara dressed quickly, tied back her dark blonde hair, and followed him into the small veterinary clinic attached to their cabin. The place smelled like coffee, antiseptic, wet fur, and the cinnamon rolls Mrs. Bell brought every Monday whether anyone asked for them or not. Alder Creek did not appear on official pack maps. That was exactly why Alara had chosen it. Rogues came here when they needed medicine. Omegas came when they needed a place where rank did not decide whether they deserved help. Even betas sometimes arrived after midnight, too ashamed to admit their own packs had failed them. Alara asked few questions. In return, the town asked none about Callum's father. "He is under the table," Mrs. Bell warned. The fox growled from beneath an exam counter. Callum knelt several feet away, speaking softly. "He is not mean. He is scared." Alara paused. The fox had stopped snapping. Callum had that effect on frightened animals, and sometimes on frightened wolves. It was one of the many things she tried not to examine too closely. Back up a little, she told him. Give him room to choose. Callum moved without arguing. Alara crouched, held out her hand, and let a trace of her calming scent settle into the room. The fox crept forward moments later. Mrs. Bell shook her head in amazement. That boy is going to run this place someday. Only if he learns to clean cages. I heard that, Callum said. You were supposed to. By noon, the clinic was full. Alara treated a ranch dog with a torn paw, an elderly Omega with a fever, and a young rogue who had driven 40 miles because his shoulder would not shift properly. She worked until her back ached, then found Callum sitting at the kitchen table with a school worksheet and half a peanut butter sandwich. We have to fill out the family tree section, he said. Alara stopped beside the sink. All right. What do I put for my dad? The room seemed to shrink. Outside, a truck rolled past on the icy road. Alara dried her hands slowly. You can leave it blank. Callum studied her with eyes too steady for a 6-year-old. Most days they were hazel like hers. Under certain light, they turned gold. Is he dead? No. Does he know about me? Alara looked toward the window. Beyond Alder Creek, hundreds of miles north, stood a citadel of gray stone and steel. Somewhere inside, it was a man who had once known the rhythm of her heartbeat through a bond neither of them had managed to break. No, she said. It was the answer she had repeated for years, but today it tasted different. Callum lowered his pencil. Would he want to? Before Alara could answer, the lights flickered. A sharp pulse moved beneath her mate Mark, stronger than anything she had felt since the night the Blackridge gates closed behind her. She gripped the counter. Far away, something inside the bond had awakened. Not memory. Recognition. Callum looked up, and for one startling second, his eyes burned the deep royal gold of the Blackridge bloodline. Then someone knocked on the clinic door 3 times. Slow. Heavy. Official. Alara moved Callum behind her before she opened the clinic door. A broad-shouldered man in a county ranger jacket stood on the porch, snow dusting his boots and dark knit cap. She recognized him as Deputy Nolan Price, one of the few humans in Alder Creek who knew enough about the town to avoid asking the wrong questions. Sorry to bother you, Nolan said. There was trouble near the North Trail. 3 wolves crossed the highway, and one of them was wearing a Blackridge tracking band. Alara's fingers tightened around the edge of the door. Blackridge wolves do not come this far south. That is what I thought. He handed her a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a narrow strip of black leather stamped with a silver mountain crest. The royal mark. The mate bond beneath Alara's collarbone pulsed again, harder this time, as though something hundreds of miles away had turned toward her. Did anyone follow them? She asked. Not that I saw, but they were not lost. Nolan glanced past her at Callum. They were searching. Alara thanked him, locked the door, and pulled every curtain in the clinic. Callum watched her from beside the kitchen table. Is that from my dad's pack? She had never told him the name Blackridge, but children heard more than adults realized. It is from a pack that should not know we are here. That is not what I asked. Alara met his eyes and saw the same stubborn patience Rowan used to carry into council meetings. Finish your worksheet, she said gently. We will talk tonight. Far north of Alder Creek, Rowan Blackridge had not slept in 3 days. He stood alone in the upper chamber of Blackridge Citadel, looking through tall windows at the forest below. Moonlight silvered the ridges, but it did nothing to quiet the wolf pacing beneath his skin. For 6 years, the creature had searched the damaged mate bond every night. Most of the time, it found only distance and silence. That morning, it had found something else. A second presence. Small, bright, familiar. Rowan pressed one hand against the cold glass. Again he ordered. His royal physician, Dr. Mara Voss, remained near the doorway with a medical scanner in her hand. Your pulse rose when the bond reacted. There was no outside threat. I know what I felt. Then you also know a bond can echo memory. Rowan turned. Memory does not have a heartbeat. Mara's expression changed, but before she could answer, the chamber doors opened. Chancellor Grant Hawthorne entered with 2 council guards and a sealed folder. Your Majesty, the Western Pacts are demanding a succession vote. Rowan said nothing. Grant continued. You have refused every proposed alliance. The council cannot wait forever for an heir who may never exist. The wolf inside Rowan went still, not calm, listening. He crossed the room and took the folder. Inside was a field report from a small Colorado settlement called Alder Creek. A local alpha had attempted a public command during a dispute. Every wolf in the room had obeyed except one. A 6-year-old boy with no registered pack, no listed father, and eyes witnesses described as royal gold. Rowan read the report twice. Then he noticed the clinic named at the bottom of the page. Whitmore Animal Care. The paper bent beneath his grip. Grant watched him carefully. It is probably nothing. Rowan lifted his gaze. Then you will not object to my confirming that myself. The council meets tomorrow. They can meet without me. Grant's jaw tightened. A king does not abandon the throne over a rumor. Rowan closed the folder. Through the bond, that distant second heartbeat flickered once more. This time, his wolf answered. This is not a rumor, Rowan said. Prepare the convoy. By the time Rowan Blackridge reached Alder Creek, half the town already knew an alpha convoy had crossed the southern bridge. Black vehicles lined the frozen curb outside the old community hall, their silver mountain crests impossible to hide. Alara stood near the back of the room with Callum beside her, one hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Stay close, she murmured. I always do. That was not entirely true, but she let it pass. The meeting had been called after a local rancher accused 2 rogues of crossing marked territory without permission. Normally, Alder Creek handled disputes quietly. Today, Alpha Marcus Vale of Pine Ridge had arrived with 6 guards and enough arrogance to fill the room. Rowan stood near the front in a dark coat, silent and watchful. He had not seen Alara yet. She knew the exact second his wolf sensed her. His shoulders locked. His head turned. Across 30 feet of folding chairs and nervous pack members, his eyes found hers. The mate bond snapped awake so sharply that Alara lost her breath. 6 years of silence vanished beneath one heavy pulse. Rowan looked almost unchanged, only harder around the eyes. For one dangerous moment, no one else existed. Then Callum tugged at her sleeve. Mom, who is that? Before she could answer, Marcus slammed one palm against the meeting table. Rogues do not make laws and claim territory. An older Omega named Ruth Bell stood from the first row. Alder Creek is neutral ground. It has been for 12 years. Marcus smiled without warmth. Neutral ground exists because stronger packs allow it. Uneasy murmurs spread through the hall. Rowan's gaze shifted from Alara to the boy standing beside her. Callum had her light brown hair, but the shape of his face belonged to Blackridge. So did the way he watched a threat without lowering his eyes. Marcus stepped closer to Ruth. Sit down. She remained standing. His scent sharpened with alpha command. I said kneel. The order rolled through the room like pressure before a storm. Wolves dropped their gazes. Several rogues sank to one knee. Alara felt the command strike her instincts, but her heart-warden blood pushed back, warm beneath her skin. Ruth trembled and began to bend. Callum slipped from Alara's reach. Callum. He walked straight into the aisle and stood in front of Ruth. Small sneakers, blue winter coat, chin lifted. Leave her alone. The room went still. Marcus stared at him. Boy, kneel. The command came stronger. Chairs creaked as more wolves bowed under it. Callum did not move. His eyes flashed royal gold. Rowan took one step forward. Alara felt his shock tear through the mate bond before he could hide it. Marcus's face darkened. Who taught you to resist an alpha? My mom taught me nobody gets to scare people just because they are stronger. Callum reached back and took Ruth's hand. The pressure in the room shifted. One by one, several Omegas raised their heads. Marcus moved toward him, but Rowan's voice stopped him cold. Enough. He did not shout. He did not need to. Every Blackridge guard straightened. Rowan crossed the hall slowly, never taking his eyes off Callum. When he reached the boy, he crouched so they were face to face. Callum studied him with open suspicion. Are you the king? Yes. Then make him apologize. A few people gasped. Rowan glanced at Marcus. You heard him. Marcus looked stunned. Your Majesty, he defied pack law. He defended someone you tried to humiliate. Rowan rose. Apologize. Marcus forced out the words, then left with his guards under the stare of the entire room. Only after the doors closed did Rowan turn back to Callum. His wolf pressed so fiercely against the bond that Alara felt it like a second heartbeat. Rowan looked at the boy's golden eyes, then at Alara. Understanding arrived slowly, painfully. Callum folded his arms. Are you another alpha who likes giving orders? Rowan's face went still. Usually. I do not like you. For the first time in 6 years, the Alpha King had no answer. Alara did not wait for Rowan to recover. She took Callum's hand, guided Ruth toward the side exit, and left the community hall without looking back. Snow had started falling again, light and steady, covering the tire tracks along Main Street. "You should not have stepped in front of an angry Alpha," Alara told Callum as they crossed toward the clinic. "He was being mean. That does not make him safe." The king stopped him. Alara kept her eyes on the road. The king should have stopped him sooner. Behind them, a car door closed. She felt Rowan before she heard his footsteps. The mate bond tightened with every step he took, carrying his confusion, his anger, and something far more dangerous. Hope. Alara. Her name and his voice nearly stopped her. 6 years ago, he had spoken it like a promise. Then he had turned it into a sentence. She opened the clinic door and ushered Callum inside. "Wash your hands." Mrs. Bell left soup in the refrigerator. Callum looked between them. "Is he coming in?" "No," Alara said. Rowan reached the porch. "Yes." She turned slowly. "You do not give orders here." His eyes held hers. "I am not leaving without an explanation." "Then you may be standing in the snow for a long time." Callum leaned around the doorframe. "Mom, he is getting snow on the porch." Alara closed her eyes for 1 second. Inside Callum. He disappeared, although the lack of retreating footsteps told her he was listening from the hallway. Rowan stood 6 feet away, close enough for her to catch the scent she had spent years trying to forget. Cedar, winter air, and the dark edge of his wolf. Her own wolf stirred, wounded and loyal in equal measure. Rowan noticed. His breathing changed. "The bond is still there." "You knew that." "I knew it had not broken." His voice dropped. "I did not know it could feel like this again." Alara folded her arms. "That is not an explanation you are entitled to." His gaze moved to the clinic window, where Callum's shadow crossed the curtain. "How old is he?" 6. Rowan went completely still. The answer struck him harder than any accusation could have. His birthday. March 18th. His jaw tightened as he counted backward. Alara watched the truth settle into place. The wedding. The snow. The gates. "He is mine," Rowan said. It was not quite a question. "He is not property." "That is not what I meant." It sounded exactly like what every alpha means. Rowan stepped closer, then stopped when she stiffened. For once, he respected the distance. "Did you know that night?" "Not for certain." "When did you know?" 3 weeks later. Pain moved through the bond before he could shut it away. "You never told me." Alara laughed once, without humor. "I wrote to you." Rowan's eyes narrowed. "No letter ever reached me." "I sent 3. The air between them changed. Alara opened the clinic door just wide enough to reach a drawer beside the front desk. She returned with 3 worn envelopes tied together by faded blue ribbon. Each bore the royal seal. Each had been stamped and returned unopened. Rowan took them carefully. The first was addressed in Alara's handwriting. The second had a crease across the corner. The third carried a dark official mark from Blackridge Citadel. "Access denied by order of the Chancellor's office." Rowan read it twice. "Grant." Alara watched his face harden. "Now you understand why I did not bring Callum to your gates. You believed he would hurt the child? I believed the people around your throne would use him. I believed you would listen to them before you listened to me." That landed where she intended. Rowan looked down at the letters in his hand. "I was wrong once." Once was enough. The clinic door opened behind her. Callum stood there wearing a puzzled frown and the old silver pendant Alara had kept hidden for years. The Blackridge crest rested against his sweater. Rowan's wolf surged through the bond with such force that every light in the clinic flickered. Callum touched the pendant. "Mom said this belonged to my father." Rowan lifted his eyes to Alara. "It did," she said quietly. Then Callum looked directly at him. "Was it yours?" Rowan looked at the pendant resting against Callum's sweater, and the answer seemed to catch somewhere behind his ribs. "Yes," he said at last. "It was mine." Callum glanced at Alara. "So you knew my dad?" The mate bond tightened between them. Alara had imagined this moment in 100 different ways, but never with snow melting on the clinic floor and Rowan holding 3 unopened letters like evidence against his own life. "I knew him," she said carefully. Callum studied Rowan again. "Do you still?" Rowan did not look away from Alara. Not well enough. The honesty surprised her. So did the pain that followed through the bond, quiet and unguarded. Callum touched the silver crest with one finger. "Why did you give it to Mom?" "Because I wanted her to know she belonged beside me." Alara's expression hardened. That is enough. Rowan lowered his gaze. You are right. Callum frowned. About what? Alara crossed the room and knelt in front of him. This is an adult conversation. Adults say that when they do not want to answer. Sometimes adults say it because children deserve answers that are complete, not rushed. Callum considered that. Are you going to tell me later? Yes. Tonight. Soon. He was not satisfied, but he nodded and returned to the kitchen. Alara waited until the door closed behind him. You do not get to walk into his life because your wolf recognized him. Rowan placed the letters on the counter. I know. You do not take him to Blackridge. You do not announce him to the council. You do not call him your heir as though that is all he is. I know. Stop saying that. Her voice cracked before she could stop it. The room went still. Rowan's face softened, but he did not move closer. Then tell me what I should say. Say why you believe them. He looked toward the dark window. Because I was raised to believe the throne survives only when the king doubts everyone. Even his mate. Especially his mate. If the council says love has made him weak. Alara shook her head. That is not duty. That is fear wearing a crown. Rowan absorbed the words without defending himself. Outside, wind pushed snow against the glass. The map was found with your name, he said. Your handwriting. Your scent. My scent. Alara repeated. That was not in the accusation. His eyes sharpened. Grant told me the paper carried traces of your scent from the royal chambers. A cold certainty moved through her. The only people with access to those chambers were you, me, your guards, and the chancellor's staff. Rowan looked down at the official rejection stamped across the third envelope. He built the evidence before the wedding, and he made sure I could never reach you after. The mate bond pulsed with Rowan's anger, but he kept his voice level. Why would Grant risk treason to remove an Omega he barely knew? Alara hesitated. This was the truth she had protected even from Callum. Because Whitmore is not the name my family was born with. Rowan's wolf went silent. Alara pulled back her sleeve. A pale symbol rested along the inside of her wrist, almost invisible until her heartbeat quickened. Then it glowed softly, shaped like a circle split by 3 narrow lines. Rowan stared at it. I have seen that mark. In the sealed royal archives. The Heart Wardens. She nodded. My bloodline could break an alpha command when it was used unjustly. Your council erased us from pack history because kings once needed our consent to rule. Rowan looked toward the kitchen where Callum sat only a few feet away. Does he carry it? I do not know. A sudden crash sounded from the back room, followed by Callum's startled voice. Alara and Rowan reached him at the same time. A frightened rogue patient stood frozen near the exam table, his wolf pressing too close to the surface. Callum had raised one hand between them. The glowing Heart Warden mark shone clearly across his small palm. Mom, he whispered. Why did he stop when I told him to? Alara reached Callum first and gently lowered his hand. The glow across his palm faded, but the rogue near the exam table remained still, breathing hard as he fought for control. Look at me, Alara told him. You are safe. Nobody here is commanding you. The man's shoulders loosened. Rowan stayed near the doorway, careful not to let his alpha presence fill the room. That restraint did not escape Alara. 6 years ago, he would have taken control without asking. Now he waited for her. Callum, she said, go sit with Mrs. Bell in the kitchen. But I made him stop. I know. Did I hurt him? No, she touched his cheek. You helped him. I just need to understand how. Callum looked toward Rowan. Does he know? Rowan answered before Alara could. Not yet. Callum narrowed his eyes. Kings are supposed to know things. That is what people tell them, Rowan said. Sometimes it makes them foolish. The boy seemed to approve of that answer enough to leave. Once the kitchen door closed, Alara helped the rogue patient sit down. His name was Daniel Mercer, a young wolf from a Nevada pack who had arrived 2 nights earlier with a damaged shift and a deep fear of alpha commands. What did you feel? She asked. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. Pressure. Like my wolf was about to take over. Then the kid told me to stop. Did it feel like a command? Rowan asked. Daniel glanced at him and immediately lowered his eyes. No, Your Majesty. It felt like somebody opened a window. Alara and Rowan exchanged a look. Heart Wardens did not dominate wolves. They released them from domination. Callum had inherited more than either bloodline should have allowed. Rowan stepped outside while Alara finished Daniel's examination. When she joined him 10 minutes later, he was standing beside the porch railing, staring toward the dark tree line. His guards remained across the street near the convoy, far enough away to give them privacy. You sent them back, Alara said. To the hotel. A royal security team does not stay in hotels. Tonight they do. Snow settled on his black coat. The bond between them had quieted, but it had not gone still. She could feel his wolf watching the clinic, protective without permission. You cannot claim this town, she said. I am not trying to. Your presence already changes things. Rowan nodded once. Then I will keep my distance. She studied him. You crossed several states after reading one report. Distance does not seem to be your strength. Neither was listening. The answer landed softly, which made it harder to dismiss. Rowan looked through the clinic window, where Callum was eating soup with Ruth Bell. Grant knew what your bloodline meant. If he discovered you carried a child with both Blackridge and Heartwarden blood, he would see Callum as a threat. That is why Callum stays here. Alder Creek is no longer hidden. Alara's stomach tightened. Because of your convoy. Because Marcus Vale saw his eyes. By sunrise, every major pack will hear what happened in that hall. She turned toward the woods. For years, she had believed silence could keep her son safe. Now the secret had spoken for itself in front of witnesses. What are you suggesting? Let me investigate Grant from here. Quietly. And what do you expect in return? Rowan looked at her, his expression stripped of the authority he wore before everyone else. Nothing. Alpha Kings always expect something. Then expect me to prove you wrong. Before Alara could answer, the clinic door opened, and Callum stepped outside with the silver pendant in his hand. Mom, he said, Mrs. Bell found this behind the refrigerator. A thin blue light moved across the royal crest. Rowan took one look at it, and went pale. That is not jewelry, he said. It is a tracking seal. From somewhere beyond the trees, a wolf answered with a long, distant howl. Rowan took the pendant from Callum and closed his fist around the glowing crest. The blue light leaked between his fingers, pulsing once every few seconds. Inside, he said. Alara caught the command in his voice and looked at him sharply. Rowan corrected himself at once. Please, both of you. Another howl rose beyond the trees, closer this time. Callum slipped his hand into Alara's, and they moved into the clinic while Rowan signaled his guards across the street. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Within seconds, the Blackridge team spread through Alder Creek, checking the road, the tree line, and the roofs of nearby buildings. Alara locked the door behind them. How did a tracking seal get into the pendant? Rowan placed it on the exam counter without letting go. The crest was made for members of the royal household. It contains old binding magic. You gave it to me. I did not know it could be activated remotely. His jaw tightened. Only the Chancellor's office keeps the activation records. Callum climbed onto a chair and looked between them. Does that mean someone followed us? Alara crouched in front of him. It means someone may know where the pendant is. That is not the same thing. No, Rowan said. It is not. Callum watched him carefully. You are trying not to scare me. Yes. Are you scared? Rowan glanced toward the dark windows. Yes. The answer made Callum sit a little straighter. Alara had never heard Rowan admit fear to anyone. Before she could respond, one of his guards knocked twice and entered. Captain Owen Pierce had served Blackridge since before the wedding. His eyes stopped on Alara for half a second, and shame crossed his face. Your Majesty, we found tracks along the North Trail. 4 wolves, maybe 5. They turned back when they saw the convoy. Pack marks? Rowan asked. None, but one carried Blackridge field wire. Rowan's hand closed tighter around the pendant. Seal the northern road. No commands unless civilians are in immediate danger. Owen nodded, then looked at Alara. Lady Whitmore. She almost laughed at the title. It is Alara. Yes, ma'am. After he left, Rowan examined the pendant under the clinic light. A narrow seam ran along the back, one Alara had never noticed. He pressed it with his thumb, and the crest opened. Inside lay a tiny strip of dark silver etched with 3 letters. G. H. O. Rowan stared at them. Grant Hawthorne's office, Alara said. His staff coded royal devices with that mark. Rowan removed the strip and wrapped it in a clean cloth. This proves someone in his office activated the seal. It does not prove Grant ordered it. No. But the letters, the forged map, and this together are enough to open the sealed archives. Alara stood. You said you would investigate quietly. I will. Blackridge does not know the meaning of quietly. A faint, tired smile touched his face. That is fair. The mate bond warmed between them, not with forgiveness, but with something Alara had not allowed herself to feel in years. Familiarity. She pushed it away. You cannot stay here. I am not leaving tonight. Rowan, someone tracked a royal device to your home. His voice remained calm, but his wolf pressed against the bond with fierce certainty. I will sleep in the vehicle if I have to. Callum raised his hand. The couch folds out. Alara turned. You are not helping. Mrs. Bell says nobody should sleep in a car when it is 12 degrees. Rowan looked at the boy. Mrs. Bell sounds sensible. She is. She also makes terrible soup. From the kitchen came Ruth's offended voice. I heard that. For one brief moment, the room felt almost normal. Then Rowan's phone vibrated. He read the message, and every trace of warmth left his face. What is it? Alara asked. He turned the screen toward her. A photograph showed the wedding night map spread across Grant Hawthorne's desk. Beside it sat the original Hartwarden registry, stamped with Alara's birth name. Below the image was a single line from an unknown sender. The traitor was chosen before the bride entered the hall. The first window shattered before Rowan could answer. Glass struck the clinic floor, and every light in the building went dark. Back room, Alara said, pulling Callum behind the exam counter. Outside, engines roared along Main Street. Blackridge guards shouted warnings, followed by the heavy sound of bodies moving through snow. Rowan stepped between the broken window and the others, his eyes turning gold. They are not here for the pendant. Alara felt it too. The air carried unfamiliar wolves, cold metal, and the sharp scent of command magic. Callum gripped her sleeve. They came for me. No, she said quickly. They came because they are afraid. Rowan looked at him. And fear makes powerful people careless. A crash sounded from the rear entrance. Captain Owen Pierce appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. 5 on the north side. 3 near the road. They are using Chancellor Field signals. Civilians? Rowan asked. Ruth is moving them into the church basement. Alara shook her head. The church has one exit. Send them to the feed store. There is a storm tunnel beneath it. Owen looked to Rowan. 6 years ago, that single glance would have been enough to push Alara aside. This time, Rowan said, follow her plan. Owen nodded and left. The choice moved through the mate bond. Small, but unmistakable. Trust. Alara took a steadying breath. There is a service hallway behind the medicine cabinet. It leads to the alley. Rowan frowned. You built an escape route? I built a clinic for people who sometimes need one. Another radar against the rear door made the walls shake. Callum's Hartwarden mark began to glow beneath his sleeve. Mom, they are using commands. Alara could feel the pressure spreading through town, forcing weaker wolves to freeze or kneel. Then we break them. She opened the hidden passage and led Callum toward the alley while Rowan stayed at her shoulder. They emerged behind the clinic into blowing snow. Across the street, 2 masked wolves blocked the path to the feed store. One raised his hand and released an alpha command that struck the alley like a wave. Bring us the unlawful heir. Callum stumbled. Rowan caught him before he fell, but the boy pushed himself upright. I am not unlawful. The stranger stepped closer. You do not belong to any recognized pack. Alara moved in front of her son. The mark on her wrist flared. He belongs to himself. She lifted her hand, and the command pressure broke. Wolves across the street straightened as though waking from a bad dream. Rowan stared at her for one breath, then turned toward his guards. Protect the civilians. Do not pursue anyone who retreats. He could have taken control of the entire street. Instead, he let Alara guide the flow of people toward safety. Together, they moved through the storm, Rowan clearing the path while Alara released each trapped wolf from the enemy commands. Callum stayed between them, frightened but steady. At the feed store in trance, one attacker reached for him. Rowan's wolf surged, but Alara caught Rowan's arm before instinct took over. Not like that. He stopped. His breathing was rough, his eyes bright with rage, but he listened. Owen restrained the attacker without unnecessary force. The others fled into the trees as the Blackridge convoy cut off the northern road. Silence returned slowly. Snow covered the street, softening the wreckage. Callum looked from Alara to Rowan. Why did that man call me the heir? Neither of them answered. The boy's face changed as the pieces came together. The pendant. The royal eyes. Rowan's fear. His mother's silence. You are my father, Callum said. Rowan went still. Alara felt his heart strike once through the mate bond. Yes, he said. Callum stepped back. And you are the reason she was alone. Callum did not wait for an answer. He turned away from Rowan and walked into the feed store, his shoulders stiff as though he suddenly carried a weight no child should have known. Alara started after him, but Rowan quietly said, "Let me try." She stopped. He does not need a king right now. Rowan lowered his eyes. I know. He needs a father. I am only asking for 1 minute. Alara studied him for a long moment before giving a single nod. 1 minute. Rowan stepped inside the storage room where volunteers had gathered children and older residents away from the storm. Callum stood near a stack of grain bags, staring through a dusty window at the falling snow. He did not turn around. Do you want to yell at me? Rowan asked. No. Do you want to ask questions? I already know the answer. Rowan waited. You believe people you trusted more than Mom. The words landed with quiet certainty. Yes, Rowan admitted. Then you left her. Yes. And you never came. Rowan took another step but stopped several feet away. I searched for her many times. Callum finally looked back. Not hard enough. Rowan could not argue with that. No, he said. Not hard enough. Outside, the wind rattled the walls, but inside the room every sound seemed distant. Callum folded his arms. Mom says strong people should admit when they are wrong. Rowan managed a faint smile. Your mother is usually right. Then what are you going to do? Rowan looked toward the doorway where Alara stood talking quietly with Ruth Bell, making certain every frightened family had blankets and warm drinks before thinking about herself. I cannot change what happened 6 years ago, he said. I cannot give your mother those years back. I cannot ask either of you to trust me because I wear a crown. Callum remained silent. All I can do is earn every step from today forward. The boy searched Rowan's face, almost as though he expected to find another lie hiding there. Does that mean you are staying? If your mother allows it. What if she says no? Rowan answered without hesitation. Then I will protect both of you from wherever she chooses to live. Callum frowned. You would leave? If staying made her feel unsafe, yes. The answer surprised even Alara. Through the mate bond, she felt no performance, no attempt to win sympathy. Only regret and determination. Callum looked down at the silver pendant in his hand. Mom never said anything bad about you. Rowan closed his eyes for a brief second. She had every reason to. She just said you made the biggest mistake of your life. Rowan let out a slow breath. She was right about that, too. Before Callum could reply, Captain Owen entered with snow still clinging to his coat. Your Majesty, we have intercepted another transmission. Rowan took the secure phone Owen handed him. The message came from Blackridge Citadel itself. An emergency council session had been called before sunrise. Chancellor Grant Hawthorne was accusing Rowan of abandoning the throne to protect an unidentified rogue child carrying illegal royal blood. Rowan's expression hardened, but not with anger. With clarity. He is forcing my hand, he said quietly. Alara stepped closer. If you return now, Grant controls the council. Rowan nodded. If I do not return, he controls the kingdom. Ruth Bell looked between them. Seems to me that old fool already thinks he is both. Rowan looked at Alara. Come back to Blackridge with me. She met his eyes without flinching. The last time I crossed those gates, your pack watched me leave alone. This time, Rowan said, they will hear the truth. Before Alara could answer, Callum's Heartwarden mark flared once again beneath his sleeve. At the exact same moment, Rowan's royal signet ring grew warm against his hand. Somewhere inside Blackridge Citadel, an ancient oath tied to the throne had just been activated. And for the first time in generations, it was calling for the true royal heir by blood. Blackridge Citadel came into view just before dawn, its stone towers rising above the frozen ridgeline like a warning. Alara sat beside Callum in the rear seat, while Rowan rode across from them, silent for most of the drive. The closer they came to the gates, the harder the mate bond pressed against her chest. 6 years vanished in pieces. Snow on white fabric. Cold iron. Rowan turning away. Callum noticed her hand tighten. We can leave, he said quietly. Alara looked at him. Not before they hear the truth. The gates opened before the convoy stopped. Pack members lined the courtyard, drawn from their homes by the emergency summons. Some stared at Callum. Others whispered when they recognized Alara. Rowan stepped out first, but he did not walk ahead of them. He waited. Then Alara took Callum's hand and entered beside him. The council chamber was already full. Alpha leaders occupied the raised seats. Betas stood along the walls. Omegas had been pushed to the back, exactly as Alara remembered. Grant Hawthorne waited near the throne in a dark gray suit, calm enough to look innocent. "Your Majesty," he said, "you have returned with the security threat." Rowan's voice turned cold. "You will not refer to my son that way." The room erupted in whispers. Grant looked at Callum with carefully measured surprise. "Your son. His name is Callum Whitmore." Alara's tone carried through the chamber. "You denied him access to this family before he was born." Grant smiled slightly. "A claim without proof." Rowan placed the 3 unopened letters on the council table, followed by the tracking strip from the pendant. "The proof begins here." Grant did not touch them. "Forged documents are the reason Lady Whitmore was removed 6 years ago." "Removed?" Alara repeated. "I was sent into a snowstorm in my wedding dress while this council watched." Several elders lowered their eyes. Grant turned toward them. "The past is not the issue. The issue is succession. If the child carries royal blood, he must be placed under council protection immediately." Callum stepped closer to Alara. Rowan moved between him and the council table. "No, pack law is clear." "Then pack law will change." The words hit the chamber like thunder. Grant's expression finally slipped. "A king cannot rewrite tradition for personal guilt." "This is not about guilt," Rowan said. "It is about corruption." He displayed the photograph of the forged map and Heartwarden registry on the large council screen. The evidence against Alara existed before the wedding ceremony. Someone selected her as a traitor before any betrayal occurred. Grant recovered quickly. "An anonymous image proves nothing. The Royal Archive code on the tracking seal leads directly to your office. My office employs 30 people. Then you will welcome a full investigation." The elders began arguing at once. Grant raised one hand. "There is a simpler solution." The room quieted. He looked at Alara. "The child can be recognized as heir if you surrender all Heartwarden claims, dissolve your mate's status, and leave Blackridge permanently." Rowan went still. Alara felt his shock through the bond. Grant continued. "The boy remains under royal supervision. You retain visiting rights. The alliance avoids civil division." Callum gripped her hand. "Mom, no." Alara looked around the chamber and saw the same faces that had watched her humiliation 6 years earlier. They were offering her son a throne in exchange for his mother's silence. "And if I refuse?" she asked. "Then the council will declare his bloodline unlawful and deny him pack protection." Rowan turned toward the council. "You would threaten a child to preserve your authority?" One elder leaned forward. "We are preserving order." Alara understood then that Grant was not the only problem. He was simply the voice of a system terrified of losing control. A clerk placed a formal decree beside Rowan's hand. "Your Majesty, your seal is required." Alara looked at him. For one terrible second, the past stood between them again. The hall. The accusation. The king choosing silence. Rowan picked up his royal signet ring. Grant relaxed. Then Rowan removed it from his finger, set it against the edge of the stone table, and brought his fist down. The ring split cleanly in two. The entire chamber fell silent. "There will be no decree," Rowan said. "There will be no bargain. And there will be no throne if this is the price of keeping it." For several seconds, nobody moved. The broken pieces of Rowan's signet ring lay on the council table beneath the white chamber lights, small and sharp against the black stone. Grant Hawthorne looked from the ring to the throne, then back to Rowan. "You cannot simply abandon the crown." Rowan stood beside Alara instead of in front of her. "I am not abandoning anything. I am refusing to let you hide behind it." A murmur spread through the council seats. One of the senior alphas rose. "Without a sealed decree, the succession remains disputed." "Then let it remain disputed," Rowan said. "Callum is not a document to be filed." Grant's calm finally broke. His scent sharpened across the chamber, carrying the cold force of an alpha command. "Guards, remove Lady Whitmore and the child." Several council guards stepped forward before they could stop themselves. Callum's hand tightened around Alara's. Rowan's wolf surged through the mate bond, furious and ready, but Alara touched his arm. "Do not answer command with command." He looked at her, breathing hard, then gave one slow nod. Alara stepped into the center aisle and raised her marked wrist. "You are not bound to obey an unjust order." Light moved across the Heartwarden symbol, pale gold and steady. The pressure in the chamber broke like a storm passing over open land. The guard stopped. One lowered his weapon. Another stepped back from Grant. Callum stared at his own palm as the matching mark began to glow. Grant turned toward him. That child is a threat to every alpha in this room. No, Callum said, his voice small but clear. I only stop people who make others afraid. The words carried farther than they should have. Omegas at the back of the chamber lifted their heads. Betas along the walls exchanged looks. Even two council alphas lowered their eyes. Rowan walked to the throne and placed both hands on its carved arms. For generations, this seat has claimed authority from every pack while denying most of them a voice. That ends today. Grant laughed once. You think the lesser ranks will keep the alliance together? Alara faced him. They already do. They raise the children, run the clinics, settle disputes, and hold packs together while men like you call it order. Rowan looked toward the council clerk. Open the floor. The clerk hesitated. To whom, Your Majesty? Everyone. Grant moved toward the table. You do not have that power without the signet. Rowan glanced at the broken ring. Then perhaps the signet never had the power. One by one, testimony began. Captain Owen described the tracking seal and the field signals used in Alder Creek. Dr. Mara Voss confirmed that Rowan's bond had registered a second royal heartbeat before the council received the report. An archive keeper appeared by secure video and verified the photograph of the Heartwarden registry. Finally, a junior clerk from Grant's own office stepped forward, trembling, and admitted that he had been ordered to return Alara's letters unopened. Grant stared at him with open disbelief. You swore loyalty to me. I swore loyalty to Blackridge, the clerk said. I did not understand the difference until now. The chamber erupted. Some demanded Grant's arrest. Others insisted the old laws still stood. Rowan raised no command. He simply waited until the noise faded. We will vote, he said. Not only the alphas. Every recognized pack delegate, every beta representative, every Omega Council liaison, and Alder Creek as neutral territory. Grant's face went pale. That is not tradition. Neither is justice, Alara said. The vote took less than 10 minutes. Grant lost his authority by an overwhelming margin. Alara was cleared publicly. Callum was recognized as royal blood, but not placed under council control. When the final count appeared on the chamber screen, Rowan did not look at the throne. He looked at Alara. You are free to leave, he said quietly. No bond, crown, or law will stop you. The mate mark beneath her collarbone warmed, not as a chain, but as a question. Before she could answer, Grant spoke from the far end of the chamber. You think this changes what he did to you? Alara met his eyes. No. It changes what he is willing to do next. By sunset, Grant Hawthorne had been stripped of his office, his council access, and every privilege tied to Blackridge. Rowan refused calls for a harsher sentence. Let him live with the truth he tried to bury, he said. Grant was sent beyond Alliance territory under permanent watch, while the officials who had helped him lost their commands and their seats. It was not revenge. It was justice with memory. Over the next several weeks, Blackridge changed in ways the old council had once called impossible. Omegas gained elected representation. Betas received independent authority over pack safety. Neutral communities such as Alder Creek were granted protection without surrendering their freedom. The Heartwarden records were restored to the royal archives, not as forbidden magic, but as proof that leadership had never been meant to go unchecked. Callum was recognized as Rowan's son, yet Alara rejected the council's demand to name him immediate heir. He is 6 years old, she told them. He should be learning how to ride a bicycle, not how to carry a kingdom. Rowan supported her without hesitation. The succession would remain open until Callum was old enough to choose. That choice mattered more than blood. Alara stayed at Blackridge through the first winter, but she did not return to the rooms prepared for a Luna Queen. She opened a clinic near the lower courtyard, where pack members of every rank could walk through the same door. Rowan visited when he could, sometimes to help, sometimes to sit quietly, while Callum explained homework or complained about the castle food. Trust returned in small pieces. A repaired shelf, a shared cup of coffee, Rowan asking before entering, Alara saying his name without bitterness. One morning, she found him standing beside the iron gates where he had once watched her leave. Snow covered the courtyard, but dawn had begun to warm the mountains beyond it. The council approved the final reforms, he said. They are no longer my reforms. No, Alara replied. They belong to everyone now. Rowan looked at the open road beyond the gates. You can still return to Alder Creek. I know. I will not ask you to stay. The mate bond between them stirred, gentle and uncertain. Alara remembered the girl she had been on her wedding night, waiting for love to defend her. She understood now that love without courage could still cause harm, and regret without change meant very little. Rowan had not erased what he had done. He had faced it, named it, and given up the power that once made it easy to ignore. Callum ran across the courtyard carrying 2 snow-covered gloves. Mom, Dad said he would teach me to shift without knocking over a tree. Rowan glanced at him. I said I would try. That means he does not know how, Callum whispered loudly. Alara laughed, and something inside the old bond finally loosened. Rowan watched her with hope, but he did not reach for her. He had learned that love was not proven by holding tighter. Sometimes it was proven by leaving the door open. Alara stepped closer and took his hand. The entire courtyard seemed to quiet, though no command had been given. I cannot forget those 6 years, she said. I would never ask you to, and I cannot promise this will be easy. I would not believe you if you did. She looked toward the citadel, where warm lights shone behind windows that no longer felt like prison walls. Then she looked at Callum, waiting between them with snow in his hair and a future that belonged to him. I am staying, she said. Rowan's fingers closed carefully around hers. Because of the bond? Alara shook her head. Because this time, it is my choice. Behind them, the iron gates remained open as the sun rose. Years earlier, Alara had walked through them believing rejection had ended her life. Now she understood that being sent away had not made her worthless. It had taught her never to confuse being chosen by someone else with choosing herself. And when she finally came home, she did not return to the place that had broken her. She helped turn it into a place where no one would ever be silenced that way again.